Hi there. Thank you for submitting your essay for assessment with us. Let's start assessing it. Now, these two give us a very broad spectrum. The spectrum is like social problems. Which social problem exactly? It doesn't say. That's good news. You can choose. You can decide which one. And you can come up with examples. Or practical problems. This one is even broader. What do you mean by practical problems? Practical, anything. And that's interesting. Does it include shopping? Yeah, maybe when you go shopping and you order something, the shopkeeper doesn't understand your order or half understands the order and gets you something once it is delivered to your house, or you take it and you bring it home and you open the package, you realize that, oh my God, this is not what you ordered. So that can also be a practical problem. Or maybe you have an accident, you need to file a police report, and the police report is all in another language, in that nation's language, and you read and you basically don't understand a thing, and you don't know what to do. That can also be a practical issue. Anyway, I just wanted to say that the topic has some hidden elements for the smart candidates to pick and take advantage of. And the essay type says, to what extent do you agree or disagree with this statement? Basically, it's an opinion essay. I have seen multiple times candidates just go and say, oh, this is about problems of foreigners in other countries. And do I agree with this or disagree? It's a problem essay. Problem one, problem two, problem three. It's not a problem solution essay. It's an opinion essay. It wants your opinion, and it says it clearly that, do you agree with this statement or disagree? And there's a spectrum. It says, to what extent do you agree or disagree? You might 100% agree with it. You might 90% agree with it. And you say that, yeah, the 10% is because of A, B, or C. You might say, yeah, it's 50-50, or no, it's 50-50, but more towards this group, or no, 50-50 more towards the other group. All the way, similarly, the same way on the other side of the spectrum, to the disagreement part. And you might say, oh, no, I 100% disagree with it, or maybe 90% disagree with it, so on and so forth. The important fact is, in this spectrum, you put a mark, you put an X. And throughout the essay, you need to maintain on that X, wherever that X is. It doesn't matter. It's on 65%, 69%, 72%, 17%, 100%, or 0%. It doesn't matter where it is. What matters is you stay there, and the whole essay supports that. And it's not going to be like, I'm going to read and it goes from 100% to 90% to 80% to 70%, or the other way around. You start by saying 50-50, but as we read, it's more like 85-15. So that is confusing. Anyway, let's carry on with the response. All right. Residing in a nation where one cannot speak the language. Cannot is now one word. It's not can and then not. You don't need a space here. Speak the language can potentially, pardon me, lead to social and practical issues. I like the word issues. I like the fact that you are mentioning social and practical issues at the same time. I completely agree. So on that spectrum, you're all the way 100% to the agreements part. I completely agree with this statement. As having a language barrier, I don't need a comma. This is a complex structure, so you carry on reading. as having a language barrier can result in miscommunication. Now we know, now we need a comma. And performing regular tasks might become problematic. Good word. So the thesis statement says that you agree that when foreigners live in another country where they have to speak that nation's language, there will be problems. You agree with it 100%. And in the following sentences, I'm going to read instances why you believe such problems exist in two fronts, as the introduction mentions: social fronts and practical fronts. And we're going to deal with them. Let's go with the first body paragraph. Living in a foreign nation where a language barrier exists. I feel I have read this before. It's kind of similar to this. Living in a foreign nation where a language barrier exists can cause communication issues. Correct. So we're going to focus on communication as a subsector of social problems. This is especially true when inhabitants of said countries only speak their mother tongue. Not having a common way of communication with the residents of one's new place of residence. The residents of one's new place of residence. There are too many residents or residents. Sounds repetitive a bit. I know this. The one is both are nouns, but residents refer to people. Residence refers to the state. The state, not as a province. The situation can make simple interactions. Interaction is a good word. Like getting to know neighbors, spelled in British English, or making friends, seem impossible. Oh, I was about to say to delete this comma, but no, this is very good control. This is a bracketing comma. I can read the whole thing without reading this part. I can say, new place of residence can make simple interactions seem impossible. That's very good. And also accurate use of the verb make. We call these we call this control lexical grammar. So you know what grammar is used for a particular word. That's very good. That's good. Let's take Georgia, for instance. Okay, I don't need this comma, and I don't need this one either. I need a semicolon here because this is already an independent clause, a sentence all by itself. But you want me to continue with the example? Sure, just put a semicolon here. That already gives me the idea to move ahead with the sentence. Most of its inhabitants only fluent in Russian. Okay, first, I think for Russians, Georgians, I think Americans, French, the French, I mean, they all refer to their countries as with a female pronoun, but don't worry, don't worry. This is technically correct. You're right. You will not be penalized. So if you happen to hear like most of her inhabitants, and her refers to Georgia as the country, that's also possible, and it is also correct. Most of its inhabitants only fluent in Russian and Georgian. Where's the verb? Most of its inhabitants are only fluent in Russian and Georgian. We have a missing verb. Missing verbs is usually considered a bad error. With a minority speaking English fluently, I like this. I like the word minority. I like this structure, speaking English fluently, speaking, the ing form, short form, who speak English now it turns into speaking. That's good control over an advanced grammatical structure. This might make international students feel like outcasts when trying to communicate with their landlords, we generalize, or maybe landladies. So landlords and landladies, or trying to get acquainted with their peers. Good. Very good. I mean, the examples are nice in terms of smooth, to the point, not very fancy, very common, and ordinary, not in a bad meaning. Like that's it. Like you touched on the correct aspect, and bravo. I liked the first body paragraph. In this body paragraph, we touched on the social issues for these expats. And before that, I was informed by the introduction that I would be reading this, and it came through. I really read what I was promised. So good. Next body paragraph. Moreover, so I am expecting in this body paragraph to focus, that our focus, or the essay's focus, to be on the practical aspects, right? Let's see. A lot of practical hardships might stem from the lack of understanding the language. Attempting to open a bank account or asking for booking an appointment with a doctor might be arduous. I like the word. So we're talking about opening a bank account or booking an appointment with a doctor. Let's see. An expert command over the language is required in official settings. Hence, difficulty in communicating. Okay, I don't need the second comma here. Hence, because this part is not a sentence, we don't need the second comma. Hence, difficulty in communicating in such situations. Good. For instance, to open a bank account. Bank account here. Where was this? Okay, open a bank account. Good. I like this control I mean, there's a very good control over the paragraphs. I mean, I really like it. For instance, to open a bank account in Georgia, one will take way more time than if a Soviet Union resident or a Georgian wants to do the exact same thing. Okay. I know, I understand. I got the message. The problem is for the expats, actually. I mean, in reality. Let's talk about the reality, and then I will give my comments. The reality, if you're an expat and you want to open a bank account, you will have a lengthier process than a Georgian citizen or a resident of Soviet Union, which doesn't exist now. Okay. So let's see. Technically, the sentence is fine. I just need to say some small things here. The first one is the word one. One will take way more time. I know you're referring to an individual. So one means here somebody, anybody, a dude. But the problem is this one is so generic. Now it covers foreigners, anybody other than a Georgian citizen. But then we have also Soviet Union citizens. They are technically considered foreigners because they are not Georgian. So let's say if somebody comes to Georgia from Azerbaijan, yeah, They were once a country or a member of the Soviet Union, but they are still considered foreigner in Georgia. So we need to say foreigners, but not all foreigners. So this is an element of technical thing. And then will take versus once. We are not comparing things in a parallel way. Like the grammar for one is future, and the other grammar is constant. It's like present simple. The two elements do not have an equal setting for a comparison. One may take way more time if you want to add the element of not being consistent. You can say may instead of will. I understand the use of a modal verb here, but this may have some other implications, other messages that you don't want me to pick. So I'm now giving you some risks with this kind of sentence. And basically the whole sentence feels weird because just I really don't know which element we're talking. Are we talking about the individual, or we're talking about the length of the process? Because I feel we are comparing the individual with the length of the process, which sounds weird. I need a better sentence that says, if a foreigner in, say, a Western country wants to open a bank account in Georgia, his or her process may take a lot longer than the process a citizen of Georgia has to go through or goes through, generally speaking. That makes better sense when you are comparing the length for two nationalities. And or you can reverse it and say just then some nationalities in Georgia have higher problems or have many difficulties than other nationalities, and it's not unified. For instance, the banking sector might be, or opening a bank account for some might take days, while for others might take only minutes. A clearer comparison is needed than this. Let's move on. Where was I? Additionally, visits to the emergency department. This refers to the second part after an appointment with a doctor, right? Smart. Visits to the emergency department are daunting. Wow, good word. Especially when one is in dire need of medical attention, and there are no staff or certified translators on site. I'm loving it. And I know I shouldn't say love in the progressive tense, but I wanted to say because it was exceptionally good. But no, seriously, technically, correctly speaking, I love it. In conclusion, living in a foreign nation, it's the third time. This one, living in a foreign nation, this exact same words, and residing in a nation where there are three times the same message is written in the same structure. It's rather repetitive. Hey, it's not a big deal, but it will affect your coherence and cohesion for the highest or the higher scores. Anyway, living in a foreign nation comes with its challenges, primarily in attempting to communicate. Correct. Semicolon. Having a language barrier proved to cause social hardships in basic human communications, probably, and can potentially make official deeds. I don't need this comma. And can potentially make, because the subject is the same, having a language barrier can potentially make official deeds more difficult than required. And I need a full stop here. That's a very good conclusion. It's a very, very good conclusion. 294 words. Let's look at the band descriptors. Okay. Do I need to say anything about task response? Every time I said smart, this essay earned it. I mean, the elements were there. The rubric was very well understood, addressed. The position of the writer was clear throughout. So there is no need to say anything extra. Task response, 9. As for coherence and cohesion, everything is great. Even the arrangement of the information outside the body paragraphs, I mean, in the whole essay, and even inside the body paragraphs, were spot on. The organizations in 2 sections, I mean, they were both spot on, micro and macro. The only thing is, it is 7 is, as I just said, some repetitive structures. And to get an 8, basically all elements must be technically accurate. So you read the sentences, and the flow of the words and sentences is technically accurate and correct. That's it. That's the only thing stopping us from an 8 in coherence and cohesion. But that's a little bit hard to do, you know. So every sentence transition must be technically correct. Lexical resource, all good. The range is sufficient. I can also say that it is bordering wide, because I picked a couple of genre-specific words like deeds. That was a very, very good word. Daunting is also a good word related to the topic. There were other beautiful words, but they were more generic. You know, you could use those words in other essays as well. That's why to make sure you have a wide range of language, you need to show us or the examiner at IELTS a little more words, that you have the full command over the English language. And full is relative here. You know, so it doesn't matter, whatever topic they throw at you, you have more than 2-3 words to say in your essay. There was one sentence that didn't have a verb. Please make sure your sentences have verbs. I mean, a verb is 50% of the essential elements. You need subject and verb. If you don't have a verb, it is open to anything, and that is confusing. Make sure your sentences have verbs. I know I could fill in the blank by saying the verb, but I'm the reader. It's not my job to write. So one verb, and there was one comparative adjective structure, where the comparison between the 2 sides was not 100% clear. I thought I'm comparing people with process. Well, in fact, we know we were talking about the process, but hey, the nationalities and the way that the comparison was drawn needed more work. All in all, this essay doesn't deserve 7, it deserves 7.5. And if it were an official setting, maybe you could get a 7.5. So this might be a little bit or seem a bit unfair, but this is not how can I put it? This can be possible. So it is rather risky. 7 is not risky, but 7.5 might be a bit risky now. You need to secure a 7.5, and to secure a 7.5, we needed maybe a couple more words or some variety in the structures, at the beginning of the paragraphs, in three paragraphs. At the beginning was kind of repetitive, and maybe making sure that all sentences have verbs. On that note, I wish you a lovely day.